All right, welcome everyone. This is the Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 7th, 7 o'clock. We're being broadcast from Whitman Hanson Cable Access. And to welcome everybody, Frank and Lisa, as well as members of the Finance Committee. Just to go quickly through the agenda for tonight. Our agenda is heavy on meeting minutes. Unfortunately, it doesn't really run all that glamorous, but we do have to, vote several meeting minutes that are kind of been hanging out there for a little while. Reserve fund stands at $30,314. Public forum, as you know, is temporarily suspended because of the COVID-19 limitations. My contact information are Anderson at whitman-ma.gov. And my home phone, 781-447-4366 for anyone that wants to get a hold of me here on Stetson Street. And new business today. I do have reorganization on the agenda. We can table that until next week when we have a full contingent of members here, as long as it's done soon after the town election, we're in compliance. So line item transfers, we do have reserve fund transfers that we held over from last week, 3 of those to act on. On the agenda also listed is the 1/12 budget. That basically was emailed earlier from Frank, town administrator, for informational purposes, really only. Under old business, we don't have any subcommittee reports. We may go into Article 2 to discuss recommendations. Whitman Hanson Assessment non-mandated busing is on the agenda. We have heard back from them. They are going to be joining us for our July 21st meeting. So we can formulate questions from that. Communications, we have none. Annual town meeting is scheduled for July 27th, leaving us 2 meetings left, July 14th and July 21st. So with that, I will open with our previous minutes. Everybody got a flurry of emails in the last couple of days regarding previous minutes, more housekeeping than anything else. Does anybody not have a copy of the meeting minutes that needs some? If you need me to read anything or review anything regarding the content of the meeting minutes, just let me know. But we have meeting minutes from March 17th that were tabled, May 5th that were tabled, June 9th, June 16th, and June 30th. So we do have 5 meeting minutes to cover here. So try to do it as expeditiously as possible. But again, I think that this committee does a really thorough job with meeting minutes. You'll see a lot of committees more or less bring up meeting minutes and they are just accepted. But, this committee, it is important that the meeting minutes reflect what each member wants to include. So by editing them within the confines of the meeting, I do think that that makes a more thorough representation of the record. So the first meeting minutes are from March 17th. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. And the reason these were tabled was so that additional information could have been brought into the discussion at the request of Kathleen. So having seen the meeting minutes, Kathleen, do you find that the additional information that Samantha has put in there?
Yes. Samantha was kind enough to let me to come over to her house and listen to the tape of our March 17th meeting. And I took copious notes. And so I've inserted and emailed to Samantha my suggested inclusions, and she agreed this was an accurate reflection of the meeting held March 17th. So I'm comfortable with the way the minutes read now.
Okay. So for the committee, these minutes were reviewed. They were tabled following the complete review for the insertion of the additional information. The only thing I would say that on page 1, down in the red on bullet point number 1, the decomposing wood and insulation, just insert the word "and," Samantha. Typically, insulation isn't made of wood, so it would be including the wood and the insulation generating mold.
Okay.
Okay, and then there was just one more on the next page in the red also, where it talks about the feasibility student, and I think you wanted to say study there.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Does anybody else have any amendments or changes within these meeting minutes that weren't discussed previously, or they want to be further discussion on March 17th? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the March 17 meeting minutes as amended.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so just for the record, Scott, Al, and Ralph were absent. Scott, Al, and Ralph. There were 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Unfortunately, we won't have a quorum to accept these meeting minutes unless somebody else tunes into the. Frank, would you say a quorum of the meeting members assembled? You're muted.
Your quorum is 5, and as long as a majority of those 5 people vote something, it passes. Only exception to that is a reserve fund transfer.
Okay,
That's part of the legal.
Is abstain
very good.
considered a
Thank you
vote?
for the clarification.
Would abstain be considered a vote?
Anyone? That's a fair question. Let me think for a minute. Those present and voting. So if your vote is to abstain, you would simply need 3 votes.
Okay.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have a motion
For Kathleen.
and a second?
From Ralph.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott? He abstains, muted Mike. Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Actually, you abstain as well.
Okay.
Ralph?
I was absent, so I got to abstain. Sorry.
Okay,
Rick,
So
a vote to accept the minutes is simply one to approve what has been presented. While you may abstain because you weren't present for the meeting, a member can still vote on the motion. A member can vote yes in order to approve the minutes because it's part of the meeting process. By custom, most people who don't attend the meeting abstain because they can't say whether the minutes are accurate, but that's not what you're voting. What you're voting is to accept the document that's been prepared.
Well,
Okay.
I will vote yes to accept it as written.
very good. Thank you, Ralph. And Al, I'll reconsider your abstain to be a yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. And I will vote yes as well. So the meeting minutes from March 17th are accepted. Samantha, did you get that?
Okay. So everybody is a yes except for Scott, who abstained.
Right. And
Yes.
he's still abstaining.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. Now we'll move to the May 5th meeting minutes. And the only reason these were tabled was to supplement the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes. And Samantha had to wait until the Board of Selectmen accepted the May 5th meeting minutes, and then they were posted. So you should have gotten a copy of the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from May 5th. And as far as I recall, we did accept the May 5th meeting minutes that are also sent as well to supplement those meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the May 5th meeting minutes. Kathleen.
Second, Rosemary.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll go around the table. Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Scott. Abstains. Rosemary,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so the meeting minutes from May 5th are accepted with the supplement of the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes. The third set of meeting minutes are from June 9th. So these were emailed in advance.
This one, it was, they were tabled because there were many edits made by you and Dave. So
Okay.
Kathleen had requested that a clean copy be sent out before they were approved. So that's the clean copy of the requests that were made.
Very good. So in my estimation, that means we don't need to spend a lot of time on these meeting minutes, that we reviewed them quite extensively. But the reason why they were tabled, as Samantha said, was so a clean copy could be provided to the committee. So does anybody have any additional edits?
No, just a refresher, Rick. Was there any burning on those issues?
Was there any what? Al, I'm sorry.
Any burning issues since Dave's not here?
No, all of the amendments have been made. All the amendments that Dave wanted to see in the meeting minutes have been incorporated into the meeting minutes. The reason for the tabling was so they could be reviewed as complete. You know what I mean, Al?
Fair enough. Thank you.
I just see one. On the third page, Samantha, 7 lines down where you have, Whitman has always supported the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District throughout the years, and that this warrant supports knowingly diverting Whitman taxpayers' money. I think you want to put warrant article. I just think you want to insert the word article, that's all.
Okay.
It's specifically to an article, not the entire warrant, that's all. That's the only thing I saw. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to add, delete, clarify? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. We'll get a motion first.
Kathleen makes the motion to accept.
We have a motion. We have
Chuck
second?
seconds.
Chuck second. Further discussion? Okay, a motion to accept the June 9th, 2020 meeting minutes as amended. Roll call vote, Kathleen.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Scott. He's on the phone. Rosemary.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, so the meeting minutes of June 9th, 2020 are accepted as amended. Just 2 more. So June 16th, again, a lengthy meeting. Again, thank you to Samantha for spending an inordinate amount of time ensuring that these meeting minutes are complete. With discussion and voting recommendations for warrant articles and Article 2, it does add up to a lot of pages. So again, these were emailed in advance. Anybody not receiving them? Okay, I'll just do a quick review. Page 1 was accepting meeting minutes. Page 2 is looking to approve line item transfers from the Whitman Fire Department. Another one for the veterans benefits. And then it gets into the discussion about the email communication from Dave Cadero. Okay, anything on page 2? On page 3, the discussion continues regarding the email throughout that entire page. And it's basically a transcript of the communications from both parties. Page, anything else on that page? Anybody amend? Motion? The next page, again, final discussion. The last paragraph, Mr. Anderson asked Mrs. Otina to provide information in regards to her conversation with Desi, and Kathleen gave a brief overview of that issue. Anything on that page? So again, the discussion continued with the final conversations regarding that. And then at the end of that page, Mr. Lineham stated that Articles 37 and 39 are placeholders. Anything on that page? There are 2 pages left, 3 pages left. The third to last page, which is numbered 310. On that first paragraph, there is a typo there in the middle of the paragraph where it says using the stator method. That should just read statutory. Samantha, did you get that?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, page 310. Anybody else, anything on that page? Page 311 is motions to approve line items, 234, 239, 242, 244, 245, and ending with line 261C. Anybody, anything on that? And finally, the final page was a motion to adjourn at 9:29 by Chuck Colby, seconded by Kathleen Otina. Okay, any other questions, comments regarding the meeting minutes from June 16th? Everybody was in attendance. I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from June 16th.
Kathleen will make the motion.
Al seconds. Okay, we have a motion and second. Further discussion? Roll call for accepting the meeting minutes for June 16th. Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, and the final meeting minutes were from our last meeting on June 30th. So these meeting minutes, again, were emailed in advance, provided by Samantha. Page number 313 is the first page of these meeting minutes. We had Mary Beth Carter come in regarding 2 reserve fund transfers. And then we had another one on that same page from the town administrator, for sick leave incentive. Anything else on that page? Anything to amend? Okay, on page 314. The only thing I see is a couple of extra words in the final paragraph, middle of the paragraph at the end. The sentence reads, as of July 1st, 2020, the school is now on a 1/12 budget using the statutory method, comma, method of assessment. So the second method could be stricken. And then the third to last line where it says E&D for the past 3 years and it will and impact Whitman Middle. So the word and also could be stricken. Samantha, you see that?
Got it?
Does anybody have anything else on that page? Okay, and then the final page. So this page, this is where we were discussing the building commissioner's decision not to retire. And it's written as there was a motion to reconsider. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that what I did was just basically state that in order to concur with the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the line item 145 would need to be reconsidered. But I don't think we actually reconsidered it. I think we tabled the issue until we could have another opportunity perhaps for Bob Curran to join us. So the
Right.
way it's written, does it?
No, there was an actual motion to
There was a
reconsider.
motion. Okay,
Yep, I listened to the YouTube video. There was an actual motion.
okay, very good. So the motion to reconsider line 145 was then rescinded. Is that correct, Samantha?
That's when it was, all the conversation happened and then you decided to table.
Okay. Okay,
So
So
we
then-
voted, yeah, I think we voted to reconsider, and then we just, like she said, we discussed, and we just then tabled, so there was no other further voting on the reconsidered line.
okay,
Right. Yeah, because there was too many questions. There were so many questions that everybody had, and without any further documentation, Karen, you guys didn't feel comfortable.
Just tabled it.
Yeah, just to table it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we never rescinded. We just
Very
left
good.
it as.
okay. So then the meeting minutes as they are written then reflect the discussion. Does anybody have anything else on that final page? Okay, so the only two amendments really are just.
I have one.
Oh, go
It
ahead.
says,
Go ahead.
Conley stated that they made decisions that impact the school. I believe I said budget. However, no recordings of the decisions were made. It was in the selectmen's meeting, but for a committee, maybe that should be budget.
So which page are you talking about? I'm sorry.
Oh, the last page.
315, I think she's referring to.
Yeah,
Okay,
So instead of school committee, the school budget,
yeah.
got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
okay, thank you, Rosemary. All right, so we'll entertain a motion here to accept the meeting minutes from June 30th.
Kathleen will move the minutes.
Chuck seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the June 30th meeting minutes as amended, Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Abstain.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, we are all caught up with the meeting minutes. Thank you very much for going through that exercise. I know it's sometimes it's difficult, but it's never as difficult as it is for the recording secretary, that's for sure. All right, so we are moving on in our agenda to new business. So the line item, the reserve fund transfers that were tabled from last week. So we'll start with the sick leave buyback. And again, I apologize. Frank did explain this to me in our meeting last week, and I just, for the life of me, missed the boat on the explanation. So since we have Frank here tonight, Frank, could you just give a quick review about the reserve fund transfer request? You're muted. So the reserve fund transfer is line 10, sick leave incentive. The amount requested will be used for sick leave incentive exceeded estimates.
The collective bargaining agreement provides that all members are eligible to receive a sick leave incentive payment if they use no sick days during the fiscal year. And the incentive is 5 days. If they use 1 day, it's 4. If they use 2 days, it's 3. If they use 3 and more, they get nothing. When we budget each year, we base last year's number as a guide because we have no idea whether people will use or won't use sick time. Frankly, in the COVID-19 environment, I would not want to incentivize them not to use sick time because I don't want them in here if they're sick.
I hear you.
But the fact of the matter is the COVID schedule probably increased the number of people that didn't have sick time because of the split shift work. In any event, the payout exceeded our budget by $900 and some odd dollars, and it's a contractual obligation we have to pay.
So Frank, can I ask you this? Do you think this would be an allowable expense under reimbursables for the COVID-19?
No, they've been very emphatic about the fact that they're not paying for employees who have time off or get what would be a reimbursable expense is if someone were required to take on additional hours that are directly COVID related, then we could include that.
Okay,
We wouldn't fall into that category.
very good. Any other questions
No,
for Frank?
just a thought. I'm in the healthcare industry itself. Now, if the patient caught COVID-19, what are the ramifications for the town on the job?
Some sick time and some people taking time off in order to determine that they are not infected. So there would be a period of isolation that they would have to go through before we would allow them to return to work, that they were working directly with someone who contracted COVID-19.
Right. Do we have any town employees that have contracted COVID-19 due to their employment?
No.
Okay.
All right, good questions, Al. Anybody else? So this request for transfer from the reserve fund was held over from last week. So I would suggest that where the fiscal year is ended, that we act on this tonight. As further questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the reserve fund transfer in the amount of $960.63.
Chuckle motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes,
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, the second request for transfer from the reserve fund held over from last week. This is from the treasurer expense line, number 52, in the amount of $500. The amount requested will be used to pay the remaining fiscal year 2020 treasurer collector invoices. This expenditure is extraordinary and for unforeseen due to the increased online payment activity brought on by the COVID virus. So I think that Mary Beth Cotter did a very good job explaining the request for the transfer and the need for it. Is there any further questions on this held over from last meeting? I'll entertain a motion.
Kathleen will move.
Kathleen moves to accept the request for transfer. You have a second?
Chuck.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes,
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, and then the final reserve fund transfer also from the treasurer collector is a Medicare tax town match. And again, the request is for $5,000 to line 257. There is a balance in the appropriation of $1,514.68. I was at town hall today, did speak with Mary Beth. She said that the amount was more than enough to cover, so that she is requesting the same amount of money. So, have any questions on this reserve fund transfer? Any more clarification? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to accept. Motion from Al.
Kathleen second.
Okay, second Kathleen. Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes,
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. That does it for the reserve fund transfers. Back to the agenda. So the 112 budget, everybody got a copy of that? Frank, anything you want to just add on the 112 budget? Ratified by the Board of Selectmen?
It is essentially a budget estimated based on what expenditures we expect to see in July of 2020. It's not really 112, it's actually closer to a 20% budget, but that's because many of the expenditures are front-end loaded. Debt payments due in July are, we get a 3% discount in our insurance premiums if we pay in a lump sum in July, and that is significant to us. And we have county retirement assessments, which are due in July. So somewhat front-end loaded. You want to remember also, this is not an appropriation. It is an authority to spend, but the ultimate appropriations will be made when we have town meeting. So if we don't have a town meeting, the town has the authority and the ability to make those payments without a meeting. I am certainly hopeful that on July 27th, we will come together as a community and vote a budget.
Very good. All right. Any questions regarding 112 budget? Al?
No, just, yeah, Frank, have they decided where and what time the place is going to be for the town meeting?
Well, town meeting is traditionally at 7:30 at night. We may move it up a half an hour, I hope.
Yeah.
Because right now we're talking about outdoor
Yeah.
in the old ball field at the high school. The moderator, clerk, and I are going to be going out there tomorrow
Yeah.
to look at the site and then make a commitment to where we're going to hold it.
Okay, so that does bring a question for me, because typically we post a half hour before annual town meeting to dispose of any outstanding business that the finance committee has. So if we do decide to move it to 7, Frank, if you could let us know as soon as possible so I can post the meeting for 6:30 if it is at 7.
What we're really hoping for is no thunderstorms and no freak weather.
Yeah. All right, and since we are talking about town meeting too, and you are here, perhaps we could request that, find out handouts that we could have made up in advance to support the position of the Finance Committee with regard to Article 7.
Sure.
So in our presentation, we'll be making the case for the voters to not support Article 7, and we would like to provide them with the same information we provided to the newspaper with the charts
I
included.
was going to suggest that you may want to shorten it for the outdoor meeting. I don't know how it's going to be out there, and I don't know what conditions are going to be like. But you want to put something together that fits on an 8.5 by 11 page with significant points and bullets. If you want, we can produce the whole thing. It may be overkill for that setting.
Well, a staple might do some good to hold them together if it's more than one page, but I understand the concern, for an outside meeting. So an outside meeting is a definite. There's no inside meeting.
The moderator would prefer an outside meeting, and it is his call.
Very good.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, as soon as Rosemary asks hers, so she had a
Oh,
hand
go
up.
ahead. I'm sorry, Rosemary.
Okay. Is there going to be a screen for a PowerPoint? Like, I know that they rent the ones for the movies and town hall, but maybe we could put something on the screen to project the position of the finance committee. So when we go through it, it's up on the screen.
Tomorrow, there are some logistics involved, and I can't see why we couldn't have some type of outdoor presentation. My preference would be to meet in the gym where we do have screens. But
Frank, my sentiments exactly. Why don't we use the high school indoors? It's guaranteed to be waterproof, we hope. do what we've done before. Graduation, we put people in the back, put people in the front. And what's our biggest attendance record we've had for town meeting? Can we facilitate?
This isn't our call. This is Mike Seeley's call, and
No, this is definitely a call between the moderator and the Board of Selectmen.
yeah, we have a lot of elderly in our community, and
It's-
COVID is so dangerous for them.
Yeah, have
Outdoor
them go on the
seems to be
ball
much
field.
safer.
There's potholes on that ball field. I've been there for
Okay.
years, okay? You bring them in, you bring them in the high school, we make a recommendation, Frank, that we have it at the high school.
That recommendation was made. It was our original plan.
Yeah,
The concern is that, one, the gymnasium does not have air conditioning. It's going to be July 27th.
right.
However hot it is outside, it's
Yeah.
likely going to be hotter in the gym.
At nighttime?
Well, it takes all day to heat up.
All right. Well,
The other issue is one of ventilation, that we're bringing a whole bunch of people together.
Yeah.
And there is the risk that by doing that, you may expose people to contamination, even if they are not actively ill at the time. We're seeing surges. As of today, there are 29 states
Yeah.
that are experiencing surges in infections right now.
Right.
So it all breaks down now to safety.
no, I agree. I went to the Hingham Town meeting about 2 weeks ago. It was out their high school football field, a level field that's handicapped accessible. We should consider that.
They won't, because of the new turf. It would damage the warranty.
But they do it at the middle school?
Make exceptions, Frank.
Hold on, we got a comment from Chuck. Go ahead.
Not that we want to hear it. I know it's not local, but some people may think of it. Triple E is rearing its ugly head too. And that time of night,
Well,
Yeah.
just throwing it out there, that's all.
wherever we hold it outdoors will be fogged a few hours before the meeting. We're going
Right.
to do everything we can to ensure that we've allowed for whatever protection we can.
Is
There's
the
no
middle-
doubt that there's no shortage of plagues that are going to have to be considered as we make the decision.
Is the
Rosemary, you had
middle,
another point?
is the middle school being considered as a spot for doing it? I remember you had mentioned it earlier.
I did actually go out there last week to look at it, and interestingly, other than the ball fields, the field is pretty wet.
Oh, okay.
And that brings a whole different set of issues. Certainly a significant growth in mosquitoes, but also safety. The fields aren't as well kept as they could be right now. So we're hoping that if we go, I even went through the media center at the high school today. I brought a tape measure and we started marking chairs. And by the time we were done, we couldn't accommodate more than perhaps, believe it or not, 130 to 140 people in that whole place
Kidding.
because of social distancing.
Yeah.
So
So I just wanted to, I don't know if anybody's gotten there's a thing about how much more you can catch COVID in an indoor space than outdoor. That ventilation really is
it's a key.
is the key, I do
And
think
that's
it's
why we're
incredible.
looking at outdoors.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you for the update on that. And yeah, the sooner we have the information, that better we can be prepared for presenting at town meeting. So under old business with discussion of the Article 2. So line 145 is still hanging out there. Frank, did you have an opportunity to talk to Bob Curran about coming to a meeting of the Finance Committee?
Well, I actually did send Bob a text asking him if he would be available. And unfortunately, I didn't get a response. I don't know if he's tied up in something or what he's doing. When we spoke the other day, I had intended to send an email, but unfortunately, I got waylaid and never did send it out.
Yeah, no problem. I know we had this discussion and it was suggested that you were going to contact him. I will reach out again unless the board is committed to addressing this reconsideration of Article 2, line 145 tonight, or it could possibly wait for next week. Or
I-
even the week after.
I had questions that maybe Frank could answer. When Bob was retiring, he stated that we really needed a full-time building inspector. That was one of the reasons he stated he'd be leaving here. Is he still staying in Hanson? I mean,
He is, as I understand it, and this is a result of a couple of conversations I've had with him over the last year. He had planned on retiring. He reconsidered based on a bunch of things that happened, including all of the additional requirements that he's had because of the COVID situation. He's also decided that he will not be working anymore at some point. He intends to tie himself just to Whitman. I don't know that he's actually made a formal plan of it, but I do know that his preference would be to stay on his current schedule in Whitman. I can't speak for him. I don't know what conversations he may have had with Hanson, if in fact he intends to stay there or doesn't, is a decision he has to make. And he may well have decided he will stay there. I don't know.
in my terms, I'm talking to you as the town administrator on our needs. If we need a full-time building inspector, which he says we do, and some of the new growth or whatever, I believe was attributed to the fact that we couldn't get out there or calculated on time, not picking up a lot of that new growth.
I guess
So what are your thoughts here?
that he really has nothing to do with picking up the new growth. It's the assessor and the assessing company that determines growth. He does the inspections, he takes the permits. I'm not aware that we are not getting the work done that needs to be done in the inspector's office.
Frank, can I ask a question, Frank? Is he under contract right now?
No.
Then if my position I would do is I start looking for another position to replace him and find out what he wants to do. Nice to have an experienced person working with us, but we don't have a definitive answer from him either way, but we need a backup plan. Is that doable?
Well, we do have I am really uncomfortable having a personnel discussion in an
Okay.
open.
I'm just throwing
I
out there.
will say that he has expressed an interest in staying on. He has
Okay,
decided not to retire. So
sure,
there's no ambiguity there. He plans on staying.
Yeah.
okay. We need an answer
I-
from
so-
Frank too.
Hold
His
up,
experience
Al,
is
hold up.
wonderful.
Rosemary, Chuck had his hand up. Could you guys just wait a minute?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Well,
Chuck.
Frank already answered one question. I was going to ask the same as Al if he was under contract. And
Yeah.
then my follow-up was just going to be, since he had talked about retirement, have we, and Frank may not want to discuss any further, but I was curious if there was any, who was going to fill his shoes? Was there somebody down the line?
So
that
Frank,
had been
that
thought of?
fall under the personnel discussion as well. We certainly can hold off on.
I can
Yeah.
answer in general. Typically, when someone expresses a plan to retire, and bear in mind, the intent was very general last in, what is this? This is 20. In December of 18, he expressed his idea that I'm going to retire in 2 years. I'd like to avail myself of the retirement incentive that was available to me. And we did that, of course. Prior to leaving, I would expect a reasonable period of notice And at that point, the Board of Selectmen would determine how they want to fill the position. Typically, we have an assistant inspector, and we have appointed one a couple of months ago, but I don't think we're close at this point to saying time to bring someone new in. Bob has expressed an interest in working for another couple of years. If he does do that, he will, under the third year of the incentive, receive another increase of roughly $3,500. But at the end of that year, in June of 2021, he will have to reduce his salary by roughly $18,000 if he chooses to stay, because that's the portion of the incentive that would no longer be available to him.
Wasn't he willing to do that though, Frank?
Say again?
Wasn't he willing to do that?
I'm not
So his
sure.
intention, Al, was to retire, and he changed his mind. So I think it would be best if we, continue the discussion by giving Bob a chance to come to a meeting, and to Rosemary's point, to redirect just one quick question, Frank, where Bob did make a presentation to the Finance Committee and did
Right.
state that it was his position that this town needs a full-time building inspector. Now it's a choice where he's deciding to stay versus, in the best interest of the town. So again, with respect to the Finance Committee's decision on this, we're looking to either reconsider line 145 to increase his salary to reflect the third year of his term, or we're looking for him to specify whether he's looking for a full-time position in the town of Whitman.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. I thought he wanted an increase, status quo, 5% to retire, as it was the norm from the town prior.
No,
No.
no, let me explain that system.
Please do.
20 years ago, 25 years ago, the town of Lexington got very creative to help people enhance their retirement. They came up with what became known as the Lexington Plan. Under that plan, anyone achieving 20 years of service or more and approaching retirement had the option to elect to receive a retirement incentive for the last 2 years of their employment. It was 7% year one, 7% year two. At the end of those 2 years, if that person chose to not retire, their salary was reduced by the 14% they gained under the plan. About 17 years ago, the town of Whitman, who also had that 7 and 7 plan, changed it to an option for 5, 5, and 5 over 3 years, which I guess partially gave us a little more notice of someone's plan to retire, but also was less of a burden each of the 3 years because you had to come up with less in each appropriation. But with the same standard, after 3 years, if you didn't leave, your salary went down 15%. To my recollection, he's the last guy who qualifies for this. And he did opt for 2 years because he planned on retiring, reconsidered his plans. He now plans on staying on, as far as I know, for a couple of years. So if he is granted the third 5%, it will be good until June 30th of 2021. And July 1st, whatever agreement we make for salary, 15% is coming.
Frank, when you say qualifies, is he's not under contract and he's not there for collective bargaining? Is that just past practice?
It's a policy
That's-
that
it's
we
best
had
practice.
Past policy?
that I
past
bargained
policy.
away over the last several years.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and Frank, you did mention too that this plan, this Lexington plan and the Whitman plan thereafter is something that we're in the process of phasing out. Is that correct?
I believe we only have one agreement that still contains that plan. It's hopefully my intent to see that gone in the next round of bargaining. We're at the
And so the only other detail that would be worth sharing was the fact that if in fact he wanted to extend into the third year without retiring, it was his responsibility to notify the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee before December 30th of 2019, right?
That's correct. And the reason for that is for budgetary planning.
Right.
Notwithstanding that, the board recognized that circumstances were pretty unique over the last several months and understands that Bob has chosen to stay on. The board is satisfied with his performance. They're not looking to replace him at this point. And they did vote to support that request for that third year, which would make his salary line in 2021 $77,988.
Frank, if you may, what was the selectmen's vote on that? Was it unanimous?
It was unanimous. If in fact the Finance Committee chooses not to support it, that's within your role as an advisory board. However, the town will take the position of supporting the 77,988.
Okay, so it's a difference of 10,564, and the only thing that
Well,
was,
it's really not. That's the difference in the whole budget.
right,
From last year to this is much less. The difference between 72.8 and 77.9. It's $5,000, and $1,600 of that is the 2% raise.
right, okay. Rosemary,
What about this situation makes the building department unique opposed to any other department? I would say maybe police, fire, but why the building department? You said the COVID. Is this the situation, or is there another situation you're talking about?
No, what I'm saying is the burden on the building department on COVID has been significantly increased. He is responsible for all the assessments for phases 1, 2, and 3. Any decision to allow anyone to change their operating hours has to be approved by the
building commissioner.
reentry committee, which includes the building commissioner, chairman of the Board of Selectmen, fire chief, Board of Health, and myself. So we had him overseeing the installation of safety materials in all of the town buildings. The plexiglass you see was a result of his work.
Okay. All right. I think we've covered this. Anybody else have anything else? I think I really would feel strongly that we allow Bob to come in if he so chooses. Again, it's because we need to reconsider that line item. It would just, I think it would just be better if we could ask the questions and have him directly answer. So,
What kind of questions can we ask him, Rick, if it's all personnel?
well, it's personnel issues when we're discussing it with the town administrator. But if we're talking about, his commitment to the town and what his intentions are, I think that would be something he had no problem answering himself,
If I might, his commitment to the town and the reason why he's eligible for this is because he's been here for how many years, Frank? 20?
1998 is when we appointed him.
So that's what, this is a benefit of longevity. And this is something that other people in that class and that have been here that long benefited from. So all he's asking for is the same, benefit that we gave to many others. Now, the timing may not seem great to us for financial reasons, but if he had just put us on notice that, hey, I'm going to be retiring in 3 years, as opposed to he said 2, we would have granted him the third year anyways.
No
So-
doubt about it. Yeah.
So I
But
don't
the
really,
financial aspect is the question.
but the financial aspect aside is he's eligible, he's due. We've done this for everybody else.
My question is only part-time to full-time. If he said we need something, can he be what we need? Frank is saying we have more things coming in. First of all, you want a more experienced person. I agree. That's a bargain, but it's the town's needs.
That's different than the question that's in front of us. All we have to decide is whether we're going to vote to give him his third year of longevity.
The other
Has nothing to
point,
do
And a
with
part-time or full-time? That's basic.
whatever his rate is.
on schedule. The only other point I would make is had he come to us in December and said, hey, I've reconsidered, I'm going to stay on. And that was not a decision he made until sometime in the last few months. It would have been a pro forma presentation. We would have submitted the budget with the request. Finance committee most likely would have said, okay, this is the process we do. So we really wouldn't be debating whether he gets that additional 37 or 3,800 or whatever it is.
Without a doubt, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'm wholly in agreement with that.
So
But whereas we have to reconsider a warrant, line item in Article 2 that we've already voted, just simply to have him answer some questions was the intent. If the board's ready to move on this, I'm fully behind. I support the work that he does, and I'm obviously, think that the town is best served by him completing another year of service to the town. Simply, the issue here is one of financial and whether or not we want to reconsider or maybe we want to reconsider the line item without talking to him. So is it the will of the board to move on this now without having him come in?
I think that's fine. As long as
Okay.
Frank says, Frank's going to know what we need, that we don't need to go full-time or not. That's all I really needed to know.
Okay, very good. All right, so I will entertain a motion to reconsider line 145, Article 2.
So moved.
Second, by Kathleen.
We have a motion and a second to reconsider. Line 145. So let me just get to line 145 and I'll read what the line is right now. $145, Building Commissioner Zoning Enforcement. Requested 2021, $67,464, which was a reduction of 7.4%. So we have a motion to reconsider line 145, line 145. Do we have a second?
Kathleen.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, Bob's done a great job. There's a lot of people in town who've done a great job. And as we've been alluding to, a lot of this talk and discussion is because it's financial at this point. Everybody knows this. Anybody who's paying attention and anybody on this committee knows what positions we're in. Now, yes, the town is moving away from some of the past policies. It's been very slow to get there over the past few years. I think there's been some policies that have been very generous, and there's been a lot of appropriations gone out that, unfortunately, we could use right now. I can think of $200,000 that would have met us close to what we needed to get to that hybrid assessment, in the last 2.5 years. So people are doing a good job. My vote will be clearly financial. Okay.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay, your first vote is to reconsider. Kathleen?
Yes.
Chuck?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
Al?
no.
Ralph?
Oh,
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion to reconsider is approved. And I will entertain a motion for line 145 to read
77, 88.
77,988. Is that correct, Frank?
Yes.
$77,988. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a
Kathleen,
second?
Kathleen seconds.
Kathleen second. All right, we have a motion and a second for line item 145 to read $77,988. Roll call, Kathleen.
Yes,
Chuck,
No.
Scott,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Ralph,
No.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so that does it in Article 2. We still have two line items within Article 2 regarding the Whitman Hanson operating expense and non-mandated busing. Those are lines 175, 178. Still in the listening phase with respect to discussions we expect to have with the superintendent and representatives of the school committee who will be attending our meeting on July 21st. Certainly doesn't leave us a lot of time. Yes, Frank, go ahead.
Rick, I didn't catch your last meeting, so I don't know if you acted on line 258, county retirement. The last recommendation I have is 2,208,175. However, we received the county assessment and it's 2,211,038.
Okay, does anybody recall if we reconsidered that line or not? And maybe
I
it's,
don't recall.
I don't recall.
all right,
So we would need to reconsider it if we have not.
right.
Yeah.
And so line 258 currently was not a question line, so it is my estimation that it was accepted for $2,208,276. And
Which
Frank,
was the request originally.
okay, and could you explain the difference?
Yes, the county completed its assessment notices, and our assessment is 2,211,038. All of the assessments were adjusted in a minor way to reflect changes in the asset that Plymouth County holds. We really don't have a say. We just get assessed.
Right. Okay. All right, with that said, I will entertain a motion to reconsider line 258.
Chuck will move that motion.
Kathleen will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes,
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes to reconsider. So I will now entertain a motion for line 258 to read $2,211,038.
Chuck will move that motion.
Kathleen will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, or roll call vote, Kathleen?
Yes,
Chuck?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So Frank, could you make that correction and
Made those corrections. I believe you're right. The only things that are left highlighted on Article 2, as I have it, is line 178. I have your vote on the operating expense for Whitman Hanson is 14,796,475. My requested amount is 15,367,392. And I believe you voted your number.
okay. And while we're just on that line, could you let us know, in last week's paper, there was some discussion about the selectman's position with regard to the school's budget. Could you give us the number that selectmen will be looking to support for that line? Do you know?
It would be the request, which is 15,367,392. That number represents the 50% assessment for fiscal '21. which would have a corresponding number for Hanson, and the inclusion of the 4 additional language arts teachers. The board has expressed on a 3-2 vote support for the Whitman Hanson budget. The position the board is taking is it's our responsibility to set a standard and to support the educational needs of the school, while at the same time, hopefully bringing Hanson along. If we vote that number at town meeting and Hanson does not vote its respective number, the budget is rejected and we start over.
Are you getting the sense that Hanson does not intend to vote that number?
I actually received a call from Hanson a couple of days ago, seeking to re-engage in discussions on the regional agreement and assessment. I responded by asking what the agenda would be. What do you wish to discuss? And I noted at that time that the Board of Selectmen were supporting a assessment at 50%. The Finance Committee was supporting an assessment at statutory value, that if we were to meet the best that the selectmen would be able to offer and support, and again, subject to vote by the town, would be what we proposed, which was the 50% in year 1 and the full statutory going forward, year 2 and beyond. There was a expressed interest in negotiating a longer period. And I was pretty direct in saying, look, if we're not discussing the concessions that the selectmen are recommending, there really is nowhere to go. I'm not going to start another round of discussions that will lead us nowhere.
So that in a nutshell is part of the reason why the Finance Committee has taken the position that they have, is because the rhetoric from the town of Hanson is that the hybrid method is not going to be something that they're going to support, and they have not even placed it on the warrant. Is that correct?
From what I'm told, they have they've reserved a spot on the warrant to present the agreement. I don't know how they're doing that. If it isn't on the warrant now, I don't know how you add it after the warrant's been posted. But that's what their counsel stated in their last meeting, that the agreement was not on the warrant and would not be on the town meeting in July. But I'm hearing something different from the town itself, and Kathleen may have something to add to that.
Well, there is a draft warrant on Hanson's website that does include an article. And the article does have the language initially proposed by Christine Lynch, not the revised language, Frank, that you sought from our town council that clarified that whole vote A but not B. So they have that, but they do not have an assessment dollar figure in their warrant article. And we have a warrant article that includes the agreement concession of 50-50 and the assessment. And there's no way that we can allow Hanson to vote for an agreement that gives them a 50-50 concession without a concession or a commitment from them to vote a dollar figure. And they have no money in that warrant article.
And I agree, because if they do not vote the dollar amount that's necessary to support that assessment, they have effectively rejected the budget.
Mhm.
That's the consequence of not voting the assessment. So that puts us back at square one for the assessment because it's a budget rejection.
Mhm.
And some people, I guess, don't get that. Perhaps Hanson hasn't actually posted its warrant yet. That would be the only way that they could still make the change before their town meeting. Under state law, any annual warrant must be posted at least 7 days in advance of the meeting. Under the amended legislation, if you change your meeting date, there has to be a 10-day posting of the warrant. So if they're meeting on July 29th, they have to post that warrant by July 19th in order for them to hold that meeting. So I'm not even going to try and figure out what's in play now. I know that the sense of the majority of the board in Whitman is that we want to do what's necessary to support our education system. And by presenting this number and voting it, we have expressed that support. If Hanson then doesn't step up, then we're back at ground zero. The budget rejected.
Go ahead, Rosemary.
It would not be,
Legally,
Sorry, Frank.
what binds them next year? We can vote this, but isn't in the end the school committee determine if they're going to use statutory next year?
no, the towns have to vote that as part of the assessment. And what should have been happening all along is the towns should have been presented with the method of assessment and should have voted to either use the contractual method or the statutory method. We were never provided that. We didn't even know that provision existed until we started getting into this mess. But every year that the school assesses, the towns get to say yes or no to the method of assessment. And without muddying the waters, I know they say you need a 2/3 vote. In the town of Whitman, you need a unanimous vote. There are only 2 members. Both members have to vote yes for a method to be used.
So just to clarify too, I know in the article in the Express mentioned that the finance committee at town meeting can recommend a budget less than what the school committee is requesting, but all that does is reject the budget. It has no other action. And I think it's important to note that we're supporting the budget. We are just not supporting the hybrid method of assessment. I think that's important to clarify because this committee is fully supportive of the regional school district. And we're not recommending that we cut their budget. We're recommending that we pay our share under the statutory assessment method. That's all.
Right. The conflict here is that to vote anything other than a straight statutory budget, there has to be an agreement amendment. You can't have one without the other. So if we do not amend our agreement, then the agreement in existence is the defective one that doesn't provide for statutory. In the absence of a vote by both towns to agree to use the agreement method, the method is statutory.
That's right.
If the town doesn't vote the statutory assessment, then the budget's rejected. We start a new,
It goes back to the school committee and they come up with a new number.
they can vote. I'm struggling to remember the number of days involved once they do a new
It's
assessment.
45.
No, it doesn't have to be 45. It can be less. They have to do it within 45,
Right.
but they can do it sooner. And when they vote a budget, the towns then have to call for a town meeting. So if you look at it in its extreme, if Whitman were to vote 15,367,392 and the amended adjustment, the amended agreement, if Hanson doesn't vote the comparable adjustment and the agreement, then it's gone. The
And then we
language,
go to statutory.
well, the agreement's gone too, because the language in our article says that both the agreement and the assessment are contingent upon Hanson voting their comparable assessment and acceptance of the agreement by, I believe it says August 31st. So in that sense, there's no risk that Whitman is going to take a disproportionate share if we vote one number and they vote a different number. Because by voting a different number, the
Could have the
assessment
same effect.
we start over.
Right. It's all going to have the same effect. And we talked about this at length when we were at the regional agreement amendment committee meeting, that we were going to go through this exercise one step at a time and all the way to town meeting, when in fact the eventual outcome will be for the statutory method to be used to consider the assessment to each member town. Go ahead, Rosemary.
So is there a time period in which they present or vote on, the school committee votes on something, and if it passes it, we don't have a school committee, that it's automatically accepted? Similar to,
If, let's say, again, there's that pesky agreement issue. Let's say we vote our assessment and Hanson fails to vote. After 30 days, the assessment is valid. They're assessed, even though they didn't vote. However, the agreement doesn't support that, so that's why both have to happen. If Hanson votes nothing, then the agreement doesn't pass and the assessment doesn't pass. In order for an assessment to be accepted by a community, they either have to vote to accept it or not take action in order for the budget to pass. But they go hand in hand. You can't have a lopsided assessment. And
Okay,
again,
Kathleen.
What Hanson needs to appreciate is the 50-50 compromise is the best hope they have of avoiding statutory. Because
what I
if
said.
Whitman chooses to support the 50-50 compromise, even though it's not the FinCom's position right now, if Whitman says yes to the 50-50 compromise and the 15.3 million assessment, and Hanson 2 days later votes no, they're looking at statutory. They're not looking at 50-50. They're looking at 100% statutory. And somebody in Hanson should start telling the people in their town the truth, that this is the best agreement they are going to get for fiscal 21 if voters in Whitman follow the recommendation of the Whitman Board of Selectmen.
I agree with you, and the worst consequence of that is the school and the kids are really significantly injured.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We will wind up with less teachers in a COVID world where we don't even know how we're going to fit the kids in the class that we have now. So it just, I would say it's borderline irresponsible. It's not borderline, it's irresponsible not to step up. And you know, for 2 months, 3 months, when did we meet? January? For January, February, March, and April, all I heard from Hanson was, we're not bargaining in good faith. And it just really frustrated me to hear that, because we were the only one making an offer. We never got an offer from Hanson, ever. To date, we have not had an offer
So
from
you
him.
don't.
Well, there's still, you know, the discussion is that, you know, we need to find a way to heal our wounds. I mean, I keep hearing this, that, you know, somehow that, you know, the relationship between Hanson and Whitman is strained. Well, it certainly isn't, because, you know, we're sharing information and working towards a common goal. I think that that is what needs to be happening, and that's what should have been happening for a long time. So I still think that Hanson is not satisfied with the 50-50 hybrid method, and I think that they're going to be asking for something more. And I think that, you know, we've wasted quite a number of months on negotiating, and you know. But I think maybe when the district comes in on the 21st to our meeting, maybe we can get a sense from them, you know, through the school committee, what kind of commitment that Hanson is telling them they're going to be making, I guess.
I'm really not sure one has been made. The old cliche, we extended an olive branch. We sent the whole tree over there and they sent it back.
You are right. You are right, Frank.
All right, so
But I
does anybody have? Go ahead, Rosemary.
There's one statement made that, you know, it would, as far as response, I agree that the school needs this and the 50-50, but as far as a finance committee member, my vote is still going to be statutory because it's not in line with proper financing what we're doing. It's a huge olive branch, as Frank, or the tree, you know, to send $500,000 over to another town. But I understand why selectmen and finance might have a very different position, and that would be a choice of each citizen to decide what they want.
And that's ultimately where it lies. What do the people of Whitman they want to do? What do the people in Hanson want to do? You know, I keep hearing about the regionalization, and anyone talking about that has no appreciation for what the impact would be. Because they think this is tough.
Would they have to give their school teachers the same insurance they give their police and fire, because they're 90-10, and I think that the schools don't get that much. I mean, just their insurance themselves.
They're not 90-10 in the town anymore either.
Oh, they're not. Well, I think it's different than the schools, if I remember correctly.
It's
They'd have to
75.
increase. It's 75.
Yeah, but there are more insurmountable issues that would come into play.
I know. I'm just talking the things they might
One
not
little
even
piece.
think about.
Yeah. All right. So I think for our next meeting, perhaps following reorganization, we can do a roundtable and come up with some type of a strategy for presentation at town meeting. Again, we'll have some information back, hopefully from Frank, on how the meeting's going to be laid out, the time frame, what we'll have for communications. But I think maybe in the next week, we have 2 meetings left, is to take, and see if we can come up with some type of an outline for both an opening statement to town meeting and for a presentation on our recommendation against Article 7. So,
Well,
all right, go ahead.
My last town meeting is going to be a lively one.
Well, again, we respect the position that you're being made to support, I guess.
Your last town meeting working.
Working. Yeah, you're correct.
You'll just be in a different seat.
Maybe I'll go to Abington's and see how they work.
Come on over.
Kathleen.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Frank, I just have a quick question for you. Have you received anything from the schools giving you a 1/12 fiscal 20 1/12 figure calculated at the statutory method? Because that's how the 1/12 budget is going to be calculated.
Just a total. Let me pull it up. Let's see.
Go ahead. When is your town meeting in Abington?
We already had it.
Oh, you had it? Virtually?
Yeah.
100% virtual?
No, we had it in the Performing Arts Center. We lowered our quorum, so we only needed 50. We got about 99 people. Everybody was 6 feet away from each other, wearing masks, sanitized. It was a quick meeting, just did the budget. But we didn't have this. We could, it was a very
No hot
simple
button
meeting.
issues.
Yeah, there was nothing hot.
Yeah.
I believe I sent the letter I received from the district to everyone.
You did, that described using the statutory method.
30th, and it says your 1/12 budget is $4,368,812.
But you didn't get a breakdown of how that was.
No detail.
Yeah, okay. Does that answer your question, Kathleen?
I guess if that's all the information you have, Frank, then that's the answer to my question. Yes.
Yeah, I would have expected to see a more detailed analysis, but I don't know what detail they necessarily go into in order to arrive at that. I know they had to submit a budget, so there has to be some documentation as to what the 1/12 budget looks like. I don't have it as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, do you have anything that you would like to submit to the committee? Okay,
Not at this time, Rick.
okay, thank you. Thank you for attending. Does anybody else have anything under new business, old business? All right, well, like I said, we have 2 more meetings to complete the recommendations for town meeting and prepare presentations. Go ahead, Rosemary.
There's no mention of the legal notice that you and Kathleen are in compliance?
I could read the statement from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Kowalski also reported that the way a recent paid posting of an ad in the Express by the Whitman Finance Committee, according to town council, was not in violation of either an ethical or campaign finance standpoint. Selectmen also have no authority over the Finance Committee, which is appointed by the town moderator. And that was in a 6-page, I think it was at least 6 pages, right, from town council?
I believe I circulated the opinion, and Michelle was very direct in her assessment as to what she believed is involved in the alleged violations. Let me just grab it. I think it's a short paragraph that probably merits. Let's see. Here it is. On page, every legal opinion comes with a summary. So in all 6 pages, the important thing is the last paragraph. Conclusions and recommendations. Based on the foregoing, it does not appear that there were any violations of state campaign, political finance, or conflict of interest laws resulting from the publication of a newspaper article or advertisement by 2 members of the Finance Committee. Furthermore, regardless of whether the actions of the Finance Committee members violated any applicable laws, the Board of Selectmen is not required to take any action against the Finance Committee or its members and does not have the authority to remove members from their positions on the Finance Committee.
I'm relieved because I don't think those 2 would look good in orange, you know.
Right.
Let's go.
Actually, they just have to look good poorer if they were. They go fine.
Very good. Well, thank you for that clarification and for getting it to town council. Was that forwarded to the Hanson Board of Selectmen as well, Frank?
I believe it was.
Okay, very good. Maybe the rhetoric will stop from that corner of the world.
Got it.
All right. Thank you all for attending. We'll see you all next week.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion from Chuck, seconded by Kathleen. Round will call. Kathleen.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Frank and Lisa, for attending, and thank you to Whitman Hanson Cable Access for broadcasting. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.